need to wait till we're on the screen? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, February 12th meeting for HWMA. Thank you for attending. First item on our agenda is call to order and roll call. So I will go ahead and call the roll. Do we have Vice Chair Louis Lusso?
She is absent. I'm standing in for her. I'm Elise Scafani.
Okay, welcome, Elise. And Director Castellano?
Here.
Director Katie?
Here.
Director Madrone? Not here. And Director Wilson? Okay, but we have a quorum. So first item of business is our consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the HWMA board and will be enacted upon one motion unless a specific request for review is made by a board member or a member of the public. The consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless pulled for discussion. So we have A, approve minutes for the January 8th, 2026 HWMA Board of Directors meeting, and B, review and approve draft November 2025 financial reports. Is there any member that would like to pull an item? Okay. Is there any member of the public that would like to make a comment on these items? Anyone online?
Seeing none, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Motion carries. Next, we have oral and written communications. This time is provided for people to address the board or to submit written communications concerning matters not on the agenda. Board members may respond to statements, but any request that requires board action will be referred to staff for review. Reasonable time limits may be imposed on both the total amount of time allocated for this item and on the time permitted to each individual speaker. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. So do we have anyone, seeing no one in person, do we have anyone online that would like to make a comment?
Seeing none, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Item 4 is to receive our auditor's report for fiscal year 2024 to 2025.
Thank you, Chair. The annual audit of the authority's financial statements is a tool by which the board and the general public may measure the fiscal health of the authority, both in the sense that it discusses the state of the authority's assets and investigates the ongoing activities and reporting procedures of authority staff. The audit is an independent review which helps guide the board in improving internal fiscal controls and establishing priorities for future budgets. Public agencies are required to change auditors periodically. The HWMA board approved a request for proposals for financial audit services in November 2024. Richardson and Company, LLP, was identified as the successful proposer, and the contract was awarded by this board in April 2025. Fiscal year 2024-25 was the first year that the authority's financial statements were audited by Richardson and Company. The firm examined all aspects of the authority's financial systems and provided fresh analysis and insights that will guide authority staff in future audit cycles. Staff has already implemented or partially implemented many items of note in the audit report and will work closely with the auditors to identify impacts from recent GASB pronouncements to ensure compliance in all financial reporting. Following Ms. Scheiplein's presentation, staff would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have about the financial statements. And with that, I will hand it over to Ms. Scheiplein of Richardson and Company CPAs.
Thank you.
I believe my outline will be is in your packet or will be projected up on the screen. I have just a one-page summary that highlights the results of the audit that we conducted. The first item on the list just shows the reports that we issued as a result of the audit. The primary goal of the audit is to be able to issue an opinion on the financial statement. So that's the first item we'll discuss. Then there's also a separate report on internal control and compliance that's included within the audited financial statements to comply with government auditing standards. And then there's two separate letters that we issued. One of them is a governance letter that contains certain required communications. And then the other letter is a management letter where we communicate our recommendations for improvement. So starting with the independent auditor's report, that is considered to be an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. So that indicates that they are fairly presented in accordance with required accounting principles. The opinion does make reference to some adjustments or changes that were made to balances previously reported, which we will look at on a subsequent footnote. It has to do with an implementation of a new accounting standard as well as some error corrections that were noted by authority staff. As far as the discussion of the financial statements, I have on this summary just some highlights that I'd like to discuss. One of them on the statement of net position, it's showing a negative net position or unrestricted net position of about 5.7 million. Just wanted to point out the reason for that primarily is the fact that there's two long-term liabilities that you're required by the accounting standards to report on your statement of net position. One of them is the pension liability, which is about 1.2 million, and that's just a liability that is based on your current employees and your current retirees, basically a projection of the amount that you need to have on hand when those individuals retire, but isn't something that's currently due and payable. The other large liability that's contributing to that negative equity is the post-closure liability related to your landfill. And again, the accounting principles require that you accrue a liability for the estimated amount of those future maintenance and monitoring costs over basically the next 22 years. So that number is calculated by engineers at about 10 million. So it's really those two liabilities that are driving that negative equity or a negative net position. If you look at the asset side of your balance sheet, you have about 5.2 million of cash. So from a cash standpoint, your financial position is good. It's just the equity because of those large long-term liabilities that are causing that negative. On the statement of revenues expenses, you're showing a net income for the year of about 881,000. And that's comparable to last year where you had a net income of about 870,000. So not a lot of change occurred in fiscal year 25 relative to statement of revenues and expenses. Next time I'd like to point out again on the outline is note D to the financial statements describes a little bit more information about what gave rise to that post-closure liability and some of the assumptions that were made in determining that liability. Note E to the financial statements addresses restrictions and designations of your net position. So the authority does have a reserve policy in place, and this footnote does describe the various reserves that have been set aside. There's about 3.2 million reserve set aside that includes operating reserve, capital replacement reserve, and a couple of other reserves in accordance with the policy. Then note F to the financial statements describes a little bit more about the pension liability. So the balance that you have recorded on your financial statements is based on a valuation that's performed by the CalPERS actuaries. However, the agency is part of a pool with other small special districts in the state of California. So you're just a participant within the pool. So there's an allocation calculation that's done. That liability remained about the same this past year. CalPERS has not made any significant changes to their actuarial assumptions, so there wasn't much change in that liability this year. Note I to the financial statements is where the discussion about the restatements or changes that were made to fiscal year 24 balances that were previously reported. In there it describes that there were about 30,000 of error corrections, and those were mostly ones that were identified by authority staff as opposed to items that came up in our audit. It also describes the fact that there was a $150,000 reduction of your net position related to implementing a new accounting standard that requires you to now accrue an estimate of the amount of sick leave to be used. In the past, only vacation or anything that was required to be paid out upon termination had to be accrued, but now there's a requirement to accrue sick leave as well. So we assisted with implementing that standard, and that resulted in a reduction of your beginning balances. Also included within that report is a report on internal control and compliance. So as part of our audit, we evaluate your internal control system and processes, and so this report is considered a clean report as well, indicating that we noted no weaknesses in internal controls. We have some recommendations that I'll go over later in the management letter, but those were not considered to be material weaknesses, so they were just other recommendations. So as far as overall internal controls, you do have good controls in place, and so we issued a clean report there. We also look at compliance with laws and regulations as they relate to the preparation of the financial statements, and noted no items there, so that is also a clean report. Then the governance letter contains various items. I won't go over those in a lot of detail. A lot of that is just boilerplate language of items that we're required to communicate. Some of the items that are addressed in that letter include identifying areas where estimates were used in the preparation of the financial statements, such as the pension liability and the post-closure liability, or large estimates, as well as your estimate of the useful lives of assets, which can affect the amount of depreciation you record. That letter also identifies areas where we made adjustments or changes to your accounting records. There were only 3 adjustments. One of them had to do with implementation of that new sick leave accrual, and some other minor items, but they were not indications of any weaknesses in accounting practices. So overall, say the books are kept in a very clean, effective manner with just minimal adjustments. Also communicated in that letter is the fact that we had no difficulties in performing the audit. If we did, we would need to bring those to your attention. Hillary provided everything that we needed. We provided a very extensive list of items that we needed for the audit, and she provided those timely and was very responsive during the audit process, so we do appreciate her assistance with that. Sometimes with a first-year audit and a new auditor, there's a lot of learning curve on our part, and so we do appreciate her patience with getting us up to speed on how the authority handles certain transactions, and to make for a smooth first-year audit. The management letter is the next item on the outline I'd like to discuss. So again, these are not items that are considered to be material weaknesses, but just other recommendations for improvement. I'll just run through those quickly. First item is just recommending changes to your capitalization policy. That includes items such as increasing your threshold for capitalizing items, also stating useful lives of assets in the policy, and also addressing approvals for the disposal of assets. Next item is recommending that you develop an anti-fraud or whistleblower policy that can either be a separate policy or included within your personnel handbook. Third item is just developing a process for risk assessment that includes, and the risk that we're talking about here is risk related to the financial statements, not insurance related risk, but just having a discussion at all levels within the organization, including the board and all of the staff, to just have a forum for communicating or expressing any concerns that they have about areas where there might be risks of fraud or error in the accounting practices or policies. The fourth item is recommending some revisions to your reserve policy to clarify the purpose of the reserves and how they are determined. The next item has to do with the dating of certain bank transfers and dating those as of the transaction date to prevent timing differences between your books and the bank statement. And then the last recommendation is recommending that the payroll be reviewed by management, preferably prior to when the payroll is run. The reason for this is segregation of duties, because the finance manager does a lot of the payroll function. Just having another set of eyes reviewing the payroll just to provide some more effective internal control. And management has provided us, I'm not sure if it was included in your packet, but they've provided responses to all of these findings as far as steps that have been taken so far to implement those and how they will be implemented going forward. So I'd like to open it up to any questions, and again, thank Hillary for all the assistance that she provided during the audit process.
Thank you so much for that report. Do we have any questions? Yes.
Thank you. I was a little curious about the reserve policy because I read it in terms of, it seems like mostly there's a desire for just kind of clear definition of the reserves. But I was kind of curious if you could explain to me the difference between, where they talk about the difference between the operating revenue and the operating budget.
Yeah, so I think there's reference in the policy to undesignated, but from an accounting standpoint, that has a different meaning. I think that this is where we weren't real clear on really the intent of whether the reserve is based on gross operating revenue or expenses. So I think just clarifying some of the language that's currently in the policy.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions? I just want to thank staff for the work and thank our director of finance. Being new to the board, it is lovely to be new and having a clean report. So thank you for all the work that you all do to keep us in good standing. So thank you for that. And I should have asked this prior to the meeting, but a point of order, do we have public comment on all agenda items or just on the action ones? All of them? Okay, thank you. So this would be, if there are no other questions, I'll go ahead and see if there's anyone from the public that would like to make comment.
Seeing none, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Right, thank you for that. Next, we have a presentation on carpet recycling, and that will be given to us by Director of Operations, Marias. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. I'm going to give you a little presentation on our carpet program over at HWMA Transfer Station. Over 340 million pounds of carpet head to California landfills every year. Carpet that could be recycled and used into new products. The carpet industry and carpet recyclers have been working to divert tens of millions of pounds of carpet from landfills. In 2016 alone, processors recycled 38 million pounds of carpet collected from California home and businesses. Old carpet can be recycled into brand new carpet, fiber for broadloom or carpet tiles, carpet cushion or underlayment, and make a range of products for industries including automotive, transportation, construction, home, and garden. And HWMA joined CARE, Carpet America Recovery Effort, in 2012 when the program first started. Carpet comes over our scale, and our staff takes a weight at the minimum charge of $2 for 400 pounds. Carpet must be rolled backing side face out and 4 to 6 foot lengths, and free of contaminants and fairly clean to be properly recycled. Customers are then directed to our 28-foot box trailer that is staged in the parking lot in front of our transfer station. Once at the trailer, stairs are at the back of the trailer for easy and safe entry into the trailer. Customers then unloads the carpet and the pad into the trailer and stacks the rolls from front of the trailer to the back of the trailer. Once the customer has put the pad in the trailer, they then proceed back over to the scale and see the attendant and let them know that they have recycled carpet to get the right charge for it, which is cheaper. Since we started the program in 2012 to the current time, HWMA has diverted 1,166 tons of carpet, which equates to 2,309,000 pounds of carpet that have not gone to the landfill. Any questions?
Thank you.
Well,
Do we have questions?
I'm curious if you can say, I would assume most of this carpet's coming from professional installers. Is that correct?
It comes from homeowners and it comes from businesses. They all participate in the program. And it is cheaper, so when it puts carpet in your house, the disposal fee is a lot cheaper, so it's passed on to the homeowner.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I love this program, and yeah, thanks for all of your work on it. It's such a great, it's an important thing for the community. I guess maybe I am curious. I feel like, is the carpet recycled afterwards, or is there a way of reusing the material, or kind of what happens to it once it leaves?
Well, once it's recycled, I mean, there's five.
Yeah, like, is it made into new carpet, or?
Well, they make, what is it, find it here, it's broadloom, where they stretch it out and make it into like a fiber again. And you can use it.
Oh, could you turn on your mic? Thank you.
So they do the broadloom, which is like a thread, and then they can do things with it. And then a lot of it has plastics in it, which they can make the plastic pellets, which you can melt those down. Then it goes in the automotive industry to make things, home and garden, anything you can make out of plastic pretty much once it's recycled. And then some of the carpet, the fibers in it, they can mix with like blue jeans and then shred it up and everything, and they actually use it to make insulation for new homes. Yes.
Thank you.
I was curious. I think you said $2 for up to 400 pounds. So, like the average homeowner bringing in, I have no idea how much carpet weighs.
Usually when people bring it in, they bring in like a truckload. You're doing a room in the house or you're doing your whole house. Depending how much they or what they're bringing me, because the pad's included too. It can be recycled too to make new pad. And then, a truckload of carpet it's usually under the 400 pounds.
Okay, thank you. That was my question. So we can essentially tell our constituents,
Depending how many
depending,
rooms you
but
do.
it's probably a very good chance it'll be $2 to recycle
Pretty much.
all of your
For
carpet.
one room.
Yeah, and I do appreciate last meeting we had the mattress recycling update, and then we're having the carpet one, and it's great to remind us and for us to be able to bring back and report out at our meetings to remind people what they can do. So thank you for that. Yes.
4 to 6 foot. And usually when we say the 4 to 6 foot is because it's easier to manage. Because if you were to roll something up that's 20 feet long, trying to stack it in that trailer, we can't get maximum volume in there. So if you cut it down to where you can manage it and then tape it, it's easier to stack in the trailer and we get more carpet in the trailer.
All right. Do we have anyone that would like to make public comment on this?
Seeing none, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Then let's move on, and we will receive an update on our organics processing feasibility study from Director Keller Heckman.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously we touched on this a little bit at the last meeting, but we wanted to give you an update after HMA staff has reviewed the proposals that we received. So just as a little bit of a reminder, in November 2024, the HWA board approved this original RFP and proposal for in-county processing and feasibility study. This subsequently went out 2 different times. We received no responses during those 2 circulations. At both of those times when we received it back with no proposals, we reevaluated the proposal, we rewrote it, we worked with jurisdiction staff, we worked with other jurisdictions outside the county that had done similar proposals, and we tried to tailor it to make sure that we could get as many proposals really for this project that we could. Most recently, the RFP was released again in October of 2025. We received 1 proposal. Internally, after staff reviewed that singular proposal, unfortunately,
it's beautiful.
We had to deem it non-responsive. It lacked a couple of items that are required for a proposal submittal for that RFP. Because of this, we met with jurisdiction staff who at the time had earmarked money from their SB 1383 regional grants to assist the authority in paying the proposer for this service. And at this time, the majority of jurisdictions felt that because we have gone out to this 3 times, we've received 1 non-responsive proposal throughout the entire process of a little over a year. They felt that their grant funding could be better served currently in the county for other SB 1383 related things. They also thought this would be something that we absolutely should take a look at, and jurisdictions would be more than happy to jump back on board once we have collection and processing up and running in the county. So after that, I'd be more than happy to take questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you. Do we have questions?
Sure. Thank you. I'll just begin by saying, this process with SB 1383 has been challenging and circuitous at best. And so, in some ways, it's a bit of a blow, right? That we didn't get any qualified proposals and I don't think that changes like our interest or for me, I can't speak for the rest of the board, in composting, but it also, just recognizing that SB 1383 was not designed with rural areas really in mind in terms of, how it was formulated to mandate composting. And so, it's, maybe, maybe I think my question, is, well, one, I guess I'm just kind of curious as to like, my guess is that we didn't get very many proposals because of our rural nature and because of, just the complexities of trying to implement something here. But I would be curious to hear more about your thoughts on that. And then, my bigger question, I think, is a little bit more general in terms of, like what, and I think this may come up some in the strategic visioning conversation that we're going to have, but, like I guess, how do you think from a staff perspective, like this board can kind of move forward in terms of, studying what might be possible with composting or what might, and for sure, I think there's some like kind of waiting for our jurisdictions, but yeah, I would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
So to the first point on at least staff's belief on why we haven't gotten a ton of proposals. Quite frankly, the first time we put it out, the proposal was massive. It was a tall task, and at the time, we did not have a lot of information about what collection was going to look like. We had limited information about projected tonnages other than our waste characterization studies that at that time were 5 years old. And quite frankly, we didn't have an idea on how we were going to process the material. That's kind of a tall task in and of itself. Additionally, we included the search for property and potential property acquisition in that proposal. That's from everything that I gather with consultants and individuals that I've talked to that would propose on something like this, the scope was just too large the first time around. So we took that feedback, we worked with jurisdiction staff, we really pared it down quite a bit. We put it back out the second time, and I will say the second and ultimately the third time, I would say that is the most circulated RFP the authority has ever done for any RFP that we've ever developed or created. It was sent through every connection that we have. We leaned on our franchise, your guys' franchise haulers. Recology was instrumental in helping us get connections as well to individuals that potentially would want to look at it. So we did not leave any stone unturned as far as trying to get this out. A lot of the sentiment is that we're small, we're rural. The work would be harder compared to some other densely populated areas. And quite frankly, a lot of firms that would do this, especially out of the area, larger firms that have done this, whether it's in Washington, Southern California, places like that, they're busy, they're retained. They're still working on SB 1383 issues in California. Washington is now rolling out several organics laws and mandates that they're working on and spinning up as well. So that's kind of some of the feedback that we got is the project isn't massive, but it's going to be a difficult project because of the lack of information that we have. And then they just don't have the bandwidth, a lot of them. And then, I'm sorry, Leslie, what was your second question?
No, it's okay. It's basically from a staff perspective, like, I mean, and for sure some of it is like tabling it, but how would you imagine this board supporting the implementation of composting?
Yeah, so I think, so obviously staff's recommendation would be to table it until we have in-county collection and HWMA acceptance and processing is implemented. I think that will give us information that we desperately need to write a proposal that we get something back from that we have value. Right now we're kind of so open-ended in all the potentials, whether that's tonnage, whether that's collection, whether that's processing, that's hard for us to get something back narrowed down that we may deem useful. There's a myriad of options of dealing with organics, whether that's processing, post-processing, aerated static pile, anaerobic digester. There's a ton of things. And without at least some data to put into that equation, it's hard to get an answer back out of it. So that's the jurisdiction staff understands that. They echoed kind of that same sentiment. But I also would say that none of the jurisdiction staff nor HWMA are going to give up on in-county processing or in-county feasibility. We just need a little bit more information on what that's going to look like, how we're going to handle it, how it's going to be picked up, the schedules that'll be picked up, the amount that rolls in per day, per week, per month, the one-offs. Just there's a ton of balancing act, and we really don't have information about any of it.
Thank you.
I have a question. If I can get it into words. So the plan is to, at a particular date in the future, to begin collecting, and that material will be trucked out of county?
That is correct.
Okay. And what is that date?
I am unable to give you an exact date at this time.
Okay. And is there any sort of study going on or consideration of doing in-county processing of green waste at this time?
No, not at this time. What we really have been focusing on is an organics whole solution, not just the singular item of green waste. It would be a facility that accepts all material. That's kind of been the focus of the jurisdictions and HWMA. Obviously, food waste is one of the biggest things pending that. Yeah.
Would green waste become a part of that organics processing?
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And then it seems like there's some possibility that different jurisdictions may start some of this, like compost collection at different periods of time potentially, or is that something that, let's say hypothetically the city of Eureka was like, we're going to start collecting and trucking it out, or would it really be something that like all of the jurisdictions need to decide together?
The exact date does not have to all start at the exact same time. But there needs to be a general plan and a general outlay of when those contracts will be signed, when the rollout, when the education outreach will happen, when the bin distribution will happen, when the collection, and then finally when it comes to us. Those are all things that the jurisdictions and your franchise haulers are working on every day. So that's definitely something that we're keeping in mind, and we're looking at that. But no, they don't have to all start at the exact same time.
It does make sense that companies would need more data in order to come up with a great plan for us. And I think that our community really does support and want to process the materials here. There are some people that are very excited for this program, and there are others that are not excited about the program. But I believe amongst all of those people, since it will be happening, it makes the most sense, even for those who aren't on board with it, to process it here. So I think that's an easy win for us when that time comes. I think our community as a whole will be on board for that. But I think the rollout itself is going to be challenging for all of us. Do we have anyone that would like to speak to this?
Seeing one share.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, board. My name is Praj White, and I'm with North Point Consulting Group, and I was the one respondent to the RFP. And I just wanted to let the board know that we were really excited to help the jurisdiction all the jurisdictions work with Humboldt Waste Management to put this together. And we built a team of experts in the waste management and food processing industry. We built a full proposal, and I made an error and didn't include an attachment in the RFP for an anti-collusion document. There was nothing intentional about that. It was an error on our part. And I just wanted to let the board know that we did put together a team and we were really excited to be able to help the jurisdiction. And I understand that we didn't meet the requirement by leaving out the form, but just wanted to share that we have that interest and a lot of passionate folks and built a great team to help you if and when you choose to move forward.
Thank you. That's great to hear.
Thank you.
Chair, we do have one more comment as well.
Great. Go ahead.
Good evening, board members. My name is Evan Edgar Associates, and I wrote the roadmap back in 2022 and helped get that grant for 2.7 million. So I've been pretty close to this and done this statewide with the office in Eureka, California. I can assure you there was no collusion going on, but I also know I'm a subcontractor to Proj. I reached out to a local firm with a lot of knowledge about zoning, local costs. So we worked on this proposal for a couple months and really teamed up well. As a subcontractor, I brought in another subcontractor who's an expert on commercial compost pro formas from Tulare County to Yolo County. We implement $10 million grants there. So the Proj North Point team with a local firm had strong presence of experts that was cobbled together without any collusion in order to have a very sound and professional proposal that I think is really needed to get going because right now your food waste is going up to Oregon landfill and the green waste is being over to Shasta County being burned in a burner. I think we can do a lot better by having this RFP be awarded sooner than later, go out to and execute on this. CalRecycle is going to come in with enforcement pretty soon, and as part of the roadmap, I spent a lot of time in good faith trying to keep the county, keep everybody in compliance and get the grants in. I think that the Proj proposal was qualified, on target, timely, and needed. So if you guys go out to bid again, I'm sure you're going to get the same qualified teams. And Eric is right. The big firms are tied up with SB 1383, HDR, SES. They charge a lot more money, a lot further away. You're not going to get any better value than you get today with North Point as doing this contract. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Seeing none, Chair.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. Do we have any follow-up questions?
Thank you. I'm curious, just with the comments that we heard in terms of, the proposal that was kind of deemed unresponsive, non-responsive, if those clerical errors that were mentioned were addressed, would the proposal be deemed responsive or?
I think that that was closed out. I mean, I think that please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is you rejected the bid and now you're done with that bid. You can't go back and accept it. So if the board wants to, it can reissue a new bid proposal and solicit additional bids from everybody, and if this team wants to respond, you can consider it then. But you can't go back and correct what you've already closed out.
Okay, that's good to know. Let's see, I want to have the strategic vision planning conversation at the same time as I want to talk about this, because to me that they are interrelated. So I'm going to try to parse them out. I do think, I would be curious to I guess I don't feel quite ready to say hey, let's open up another proposal process tomorrow, right? Because I think that there's probably some thinking and talking to do at the board level in terms of like how that, why and how it hasn't worked. And, you know, to really, you know, we have a lot of like new members on the board, and, you know, and to really get a deeper conversation into sort of like the details around this. And this is something that I think would be good to kind of schedule for something like a strategic visioning, if we were just deciding to do strategic vision, you know, or, and so, you know, just to say, you know, I appreciate staff's diligence in terms of, you know, not bringing forward a proposal that wasn't ready for prime time, or, you know, those kinds of things. And also, you know, to me at this point, it doesn't mean that I personally have given up on the idea of, you know, addressing SB 1383. And, you know, and I think maybe there's some room for innovation, or maybe there's some room for conversation, and maybe we want to even, you know, refine a proposal that would have a more like county specific framework. I mean, and I know it did, you know, and or like maybe there's some things that were challenges with the proposal that we want to think about addressing as well. And so that's just, you know, I guess like I don't know if you need a motion for this or not, you know, but I think my direction would be that like we create an opportunity to have a more detailed conversation and then revisit this at our kind of earliest possible opportunity after that.
I will say that the majority of our jurisdictions have earmarked grant funding, and they need at least a little bit of direction from us on if we plan on putting it back out. They'll leave the grant funds earmarked, but if not, if we're going to take a look at this and say 6 months, they would rather redesignate those funds for other SB 1383 compliance issues that they currently have. So at least some direction on maybe a timeline or what staff can take back to the jurisdictions regarding their grant funded their earmarked funds would be great.
I think one of the things, and I am one of the new people to the board, so this is, you know, I'm jumping in mid-process to all of this. But one thing that stood out for me was the fact of staff getting together to discuss the process and kind of coming to a consensus that the grant money would be better used to help us get this off the ground and rolling, because it is such a heavy lift. And then once we, you know, to use the money for that. And so I think that's why we do need to make a decision on if we're, well, you know, if we want to follow the staff's recommendation or not, so that our jurisdictions know if they've got that grant money. And I'm sorry, were you wanting to mix in on this?
Well, I feel like I'm at a similar disadvantage because I just drop in here every few months. But it seems to me that if you have a qualified respondent that could respond to a new RFP, that waiting maybe isn't the best option, especially, and maybe I've misunderstood, but it seems like you have grant funding that you might be able to make use of from the various agencies if this were to go forward in a timely fashion.
That is correct. Jurisdictions back in 2024 earmarked sections of their SB 1383 regional compliance grant that they all received. So there's a cost share with the jurisdictions and HWMA to fund the work for this proposal, yes.
So if this team that made this proposal could come forward with another proposal, if this were to go back out in the next month or so, is the authority prepared to move forward with the whole process?
The authority would be fine. I would have to double check with jurisdiction staff again and get their take, because as I said, in the staff recommendation, the majority of the jurisdictions agreed amongst themselves that to put this on hold and make sure that we get the current collection and processing up and running. So I don't want to answer without at least being able to double back with them.
I do have a question and then a comment. So my question is I know that we, as council has stated, we already passed the proposal that is done. Did that ever make it to the board for a vote?
No, what would come to the board for a vote would be awarding. So,
yeah, so I was misinformed and I misunderstood. This was a staff determination of non-responsiveness. That is actually a board level determination. And I think maybe you need to bring back more information to the next board meeting so the board can identify whether to award this or not, to deem it non-responsive. Oh, so anyway, that's not the process that's followed here. I'm understanding.
I mean,
so.
I would be more than
Okay.
happy to do that. But anytime the authority in the history that I've been here, anytime we deem proposals non-responsive, it's always been at the staff level. If that's something that you would like me to bring forward, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Thoughts? Yes.
Yeah, I just have a question. If we don't use this grant money now and it used for something else, is there grant money that we can continue where we left off in 6 months, or is it gone?
The grant money that's earmarked by the jurisdictions would be used for other items. So that grant funding would be gone and
So we'd
utilized.
have to start over getting more funding.
Correct.
All right. So we've had a lot of interesting discussion. Do we have thoughts on how to proceed?
I would say that if it's a possibility to bring it back next month for reconsideration, that would be a feasible plan. So I don't know if you want a motion, or I would be willing to make a motion to that effect. So I would move that the proposal be brought to the board for evaluation next month.
Do we have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to go with staff's recommendation and vote no. So, but we do have 3 yeses and 1 no, so the vote carries, and we will. Does bringing it back next month give you enough of a chance to interact with staff?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll let them know.
Okay, thank you. Did you have something to add?
Sorry, I'm
It's
like,
okay.
I want to make a friendly amendment. Give me a moment. I love it when we're wrestling with things in real time. Gosh, this month and next month. I am wondering, this may be a question for board members and for staff, if we could have, I guess, a study session. I don't know, like part of me wants to have a little bit more opportunity. Is the local task force, or the LTF, is that what it's called, meeting in the next month?
No.
Yes?
No, I do not believe
okay.
so.
I think I would support this, but also I want to have a chance for jurisdiction staff to, be part of the conversation, I guess. So I think my friendly amendment would be like, can we? Sorry, it shouldn't be a question. With a study session that includes jurisdiction staff to kind of give greater breadth to the concerns around the issue. Does that make sense?
Well, first of all, I don't know that when we took a vote and we voted.
Yeah.
I didn't vote yet.
Yeah.
I didn't know the vote. Sorry.
we-
You said
you did?
yes. You voted yes.
Oh,
But so you could though make a new motion. But,
okay.
And I do
Sorry, I don't think
that's
I thought it was. I think I
correct
was
point
like.
of order.
Anyway, yeah.
But I wanted to say, I think what you would like is input from the jurisdictions,
Yeah.
whether you want to proceed with this project or not, and that's a different question than
Exactly.
responsive
That's what I'm
versus
trying to get at. I'm like,
non-responsiveness. So remember how this was all set up. HWMA is, your liaison to the district staff in this project.
yeah.
And so you really set it up so that you don't have to have this kind of cumbersome, well, wait a minute, now let's hold a meeting with all of the different agencies and schedule all of that. But maybe it is worth asking, and Eric might be able to answer, what is the reason that the jurisdictions in general think the money can be better used elsewhere?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what you want to explore, whether you do that now and then reconsider your motion, or
Yeah.
you do that next month.
Well, I think for what I would do if we are moving forward to, to having another presentation, I will go to staff between now and then and have that conversation, which is what each one of us can do, and get that direct response from staff.
Sure. No, I realize that. It's just, I can't. I mean, I guess, I'm comfortable doing that. And I, trust.
So I'm going to meet with your jurisdiction staff regardless.
Yeah.
So however we proceed, no matter what, I'm going to meet with them. It would probably be sometime next week. So it's not as if HWMA is not going to get input on whatever direction the board decides and directs us to go with.
Yeah. Okay, great. Then let's go forward with that.
All right. Well, we are. So we're going forward with it. And thanks. That was a lively discussion, and put us all to use trying to figure things out. So thanks for that. And next we have the strategic vision planning. And I think Director Keller Heckman's going to get us started. And I know this is also brought up by Director Castellano at the last meeting. So.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously the HWMA board requested this be an agendized item at a prior meeting. Staff wanted to put this on the agenda and give the board the opportunity to discuss it at length and then provide direction as appropriate. Staff does have a couple items that the board can consider and potentially give direction on. One of the biggest items would be the length. So the length of the actual planning and then the length of the plan itself, the jurisdictions or staff or entities that would be involved in the planning, whether that's staff from all the jurisdictions and HWMA, whether that's a consultant. I think it's really open-ended for the board to decide what they would like to see in a strategic vision planning and the future for the authority.
All right. Do we have thoughts on this? Before we get started, though, I think it is great to discuss it. I am a little hesitant having three of our regular board members absent. So this seems also like would be important to have everybody's input on it. But not to put you on the spot, but did you have thoughts on this, Leslie?
Sure. I think generally speaking, if folks don't know already, the City of Eureka has term limits, and this is my last year on this board. And so, in my tenure on the board, there's been a lot of change within the organization, and especially this, the issue of SB 1383 has been something that's just been wily to really try to grapple with as a county, as a region, within our municipalities. Also, there's been, just a lot of change on the board, which is, natural, but I think it's a good time for us to, have an opportunity to learn and converse together in a deeper way in terms of, right, like, there's been a lot of change with recycling, with the change in, with the whether or not we're doing composting, with the facility itself. So that's sort of the why. In terms of the timing, I would like to go with someone local to, I do think we should find a facilitator. I don't know that we need to do like a formal call necessarily, but I do think that we should, kind of, sure. I mean, I guess put out a call for a facilitator. Ideally, and I'd be curious for, your input in terms of just like, can we do this by May? Like, would that be, do you think that would be feasible? Also, for folks here, I would like to do it, before the before the end of June, just so that way there's time. Maybe I'm self-interested, to kind of like work towards some of the goals a little bit, before the end of this calendar year. Yeah.
Who do you envision besides board members? Would it also include staff members from our jurisdictions as well?
I think that would be helpful to have staff members from our jurisdictions because, it would, and Eric's doing a great job of meeting them all, but so much of this is about, how like staff are also implementing that, and their input. So I think it would be more efficient for us to have those members present.
I agree. I think that would be more beneficial to have staff present. Do we have any other thoughts on this from board members?
I think I would just say that I like your idea about getting it started. Term limits or otherwise, I think that there's certain times of the year that are just, things just get harder, and so starting now is probably a great idea. And giving yourself some time to see it through. So I would support that.
Okay, why don't we see if we have any public comment on this item?
Seeing none, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like there is a general consensus to see if we can logistically move forward. I know it'll be a bit difficult to find the time for all of us and for staff, but it seems like that's the will of the board at this point. Anything else before we move on? Any questions?
Does the board want to identify a sort of subcommittee of you, a subset that could work with Eric to, put together an agenda, find somebody that could facilitate the meeting, the study session, or do you want staff to come back next month with those details?
I'd be interested in being on a subcommittee if
I'm new, but I'm happy to assist however I can.
So then
make a motion.
You could actually make
I can make that motion.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think of next steps, because you do want to get it moving, it sounds like. And so rather than, kind of like, well, let's see, next time you're going to come back and decide what you're going to do, you could actually then maybe even consider implementing dates when you might be available. One thing would be whether the consultant or the facilitator can be hired without your action, and that would depend on the cost. And whether you all are comfortable giving the subcommittee authority to work with Eric to choose a facilitator.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel I would. Oh, sorry. I'm also having. I will just own that I didn't bring my hearing aids, and I'm catching most of what people are saying, but it's definitely, I'm like definitely leaning into these conversations. So just to say, like, sometimes I'm like, I think I got everything that Nancy said. So
Well,
that's,
are you ready to, actually sit down and implement details to get this rolling, or do you want to have more come back to the board next month before you get into the real details and start, finding a facilitator and finding dates, setting an agenda or topics that you want talked about?
I mean, I would feel comfortable forming a subcommittee and starting to get into the details, and then, kind of bringing back a more prepared plan for the board. But I think that I'd feel comfortable empowering a subcommittee to work on those things together and bring it back to the board for approval.
Okay. And
Can,
I also do not have to be on the subcommittee. If you're, you've definitely been on the board longer. If you're interested in working with Leslie on that.
It just depends on what date we're going. Next month is pretty tight for me.
I think for my understanding is for this month it would just be some discussion about the subcommittee, just some discussion about what this would look like to be able to bring details back to the board.
yeah, I think the subcommittee would plan like a 2-hour meeting at some point in the upcoming month to plan out the framework for the strategic visioning, including dates and facilitator.
Is that something that you would be, because I'm sure a subcommittee can only be 2 people, correct?
Yeah.
Otherwise we've got a quorum. Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is a 6-member board. 3 is not a quorum.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the 3 of us, does anybody want to make that motion? And I mean, for scheduling, obviously that's going to be the trickiest part, but we can doodle poll and do all the things to try to come up with where we can wrangle most of us together, I think.
Great. Okay. I move for Randy, Katie, Cece Atkins Salazar, and myself, Leslie Castellano, to form a subcommittee to form the structure and plan for strategic visioning to meet in the upcoming month. And bring back that plan to the board at the March meeting.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right, item 9 is our executive director's report.
Thank you, Chair. So I do have one item. This week, we received word from CalRecycle that we will be granted a new notice to proceed for our Organics ORG7 grant. We received the new grant agreement this afternoon, and it was executed. And we are free to move forward with the construction and implement the retrofits to the organics processing facility effective this afternoon. Additionally, they granted our 1-year extension as well. So the grant and term now will run till April 2027.
That is great news. Any questions?
Where is that facility?
It's at the Hawthorne Street transfer station. It's going to be co-located with it. It's at the old Eureka Recycling Center.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will be going into closed session and this is closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.8, real property, to consider potential price and terms of purchase of property APN 405-081-039. So we will go into closed session for this, and then we will come back for if we have a report out and to adjourn. Thank you.